Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today's video will be part 8 in our Introduction to Python tutorial series, and today's video will focus on classes and object instances of those classes. So Python has a functionality to group together objects with shared features into something called a class. And the way you create a class in Python is you just type the word class, and then the most common syntax for Python classes is you would use a capital first letter. So a class I like to use, for example, is sandwich, because you obviously can have a lot of different sandwiches, but then you think about the things that share them, and it's that they all share, and it's like, well, they all have bread, and they all have some filling. And then in general, there are really only two types of sandwiches. There's hot sandwiches and cold sandwiches. And so you can create functionality inside of this that lets you use certain functions for all the different objects just by passing in a few shared parameters. So this is a little bit of Python specific syntax, but after you create a class, you use this def __init__ function, and then you start defining parameters that get shared by all of them, and the first one is always going to be self. Just referring to this class as the first parameter, saying when you use self, you're referring to variables inside the class. So self, and then we'll say every sandwich is going to have a name. We'll define a bread. We'll say what the filling is, and then we'll use a Boolean variable to say whether or not it's hot. And then the next thing about classes you need to do is you need to take those variables that you just passed in, so name, and you need to assign them to variables inside the class. So self.name is equal to name, self.bread is equal to the bread parameter we're going to pass in, self.filling will be equal to filling, and self.hot we will call hot. And actually, like this self.name, you're actually just creating parameters to be used within the class. They don't need to be the exact same parameter names as the names you passed in. So like instead of this being hot, I'll call it hot or not. That way you can see like this is just so that we can use it inside of our class functionality. So let's go ahead and do an example of how you would actually use these parameters to do something inside of a class. So we'll create a function called isHot, and it's just the only parameter it actually needs is self because it exists inside of this class. And all we're going to say is if self dot hot or not, right? So we're checking if it's hot or if it's not, and we'll say that because we kind of get to define this, we'll say that if that Boolean is true, then it is a hot sandwich. So we'll say if hot or not, then what we're going to do is we're going to print self.name, which will come through as a string, and then we'll add is a hot sandwich. And if this seems silly, just wait until we actually get to the demonstration of what this is doing, and then you'll kind of see the value in this. So else print, and we'll say print self.name is not a hot sandwich. And so we'll add some more functionality to this in a minute, but let me go ahead and make a couple instances of this class. So this is how you actually define objects. So think of two sandwiches real quick. You have a peanut butter and jelly, we'll call it PB&J. And to create an object that's an instance of a class, you say equals to, and then the class name, and then you actually give it specific parameters for all of the inputs. So for PB&J, we're going to say PBJ for name, and then we'll say white for bread. We'll say peanut butter and jelly for filling, and then we'll say false, that's not a hot sandwich. And just so we have a couple instances of this, let's also do a BLT, and that's gonna also be a sandwich, but then this one is gonna have a name, BLT. We're gonna put it on wheat bread. The filling will be bacon, lettuce, and tomato. There's our BL and T. And then this, let's say it is a hot sandwich because you fry up the bacon. So the way you actually use this is hot function is you would type the instance of the class, and you would say pbj dot is hot. And just by being an instance of this class, we have access to all the functions inside of that class. So this is going to tell us, if we run it, pbj is not a hot sandwich. Okay, that's pretty cool. But then let's say blt dot is hot as well. And in running this, BLT is a hot sandwich. So you can see, just by having two different classes with different parameter definitions, we run the same code twice and get different outputs. And so that's pretty cool. But we can do some cooler things with it. Let's do another that's def, and we're actually going to say we want to build the sandwich. And again, it's just inside the function, and we already have the bread and filling, so all we need for parameters is just self. And let's print to build a, and let's use the name here. So let's say to build a plus self dot sandwich. And you can see inside these functions, you actually, it's self dot name. You actually use self dot to use the variable inside of the function, not just the name, it's self dot name or self dot bread or filling or hot or not. You always use self dot before you use something inside of a class. So to build a plus self dot name plus sandwich, and let's copy a few more print statements. So to build a blank, and then this we want to say start with plus self dot bread, and then bread, and then we'll say then put self dot filling in it, and then we will just say enjoy your sandwich. And that's a wholesome sandwich building program. But the cool thing is, with what we just did, we should be able to run pbj.build, we gotta spell it right, pbj.build sandwich, it's right there, and blt.build sandwich. And when we run this now, we get PBJ is not a hot sandwich. BLT is a hot sandwich. To build a PBJ sandwich, start with white bread, then put peanut butter and jelly in it. Enjoy your sandwich. To build a BLT, start with wheat, put bacon, lettuce, and tomato in it. Enjoy your sandwich. So, I mean, this is maybe a silly example with sandwiches, but it should show right away the kind of powerful, cool functionality that you can do with classes and class objects inside of Python. You write code once, that gets shared across a number of different objects, and you get to use it however you want. So this is just a food-based example, but classes can be used for multiple enemies or multiple players in game formats. You can use classes for things like buttons on apps and lookup tables and things that operate the same way over and over and over again, and you have many of the different instances of them, but they all kind of have shared features. So this has just been a brief introduction to classes and objects, but hopefully you found it helpful. If you have any questions about anything that I covered today, or you feel I missed something important, go ahead and drop a comment and let me know about it. I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. And if you found any of this content or anything else on the channel useful, feel free to drop a like and subscribe. I really appreciate it. And as always, thanks for checking out the channel, and good luck with your code. Thanks. Bye.